Much for coming. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dickson Olekaelo from the Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association in Kenya. Our organization is an umbrella body for community conservancies and private conservancies that are developed around national parks and national reserve, and that we utilize to conserve wildlife and bring about community engagement to address, among other issues, the important issue of illegal wildlife crime. It's going to be a panel session, and we'll also have an opportunity to interact. We are using today an interactive event tech software called Gliza. We welcome questions and contributions, and we will take them to our panel as we continue our discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this morning we had a very interesting opening session, and I think one of the cross-cutting issues in this conference is the word on engaging local communities. But just exactly what does this mean? And what have we learned so far in the last few years in our effort to engage local communities to conserve wildlife? It's notable that land under community management is 25% of the global land area and doubles the size of our national parks. We are also recognizing in this conference that we cannot achieve much without engaging local communities. The local communities are most affected by illegal wildlife crime, both as caused by the loss of their wildlife resource, but also because of the other negative consequences that comes with illegal wildlife crime. It appears to us in our Community Voices discussion yesterday that quite a number of commitments that have been made by countries are yet to be addressed. We recognize that community-led conservation is beginning to filter into national and international policies, but also recognize that the commitments that are about engaging local communities in IWT, and especially the important issues of livelihoods, is yet to make enough progress. We see from our assessment yesterday in our meeting, we had about 40 community representatives, and many of them are with you today, from 30 different countries, that we have countries that have made quite strong progress in this important issue. However, sadly, this is not the situation in all countries. And this opportunity for us today is important because we are going to be addressing some of the important things that we consider as important missing commitments that we hope this conference can take forward. First and foremost, the recognition that legal support and recognition of local communities as important stewards and resource users with the right to have resource rights is an important consideration to be included in future commitments. The recognition and support of indigenous communities, indigenous knowledge, indigenous skill sets, indigenous human resources are also very important in this fight to end illegal wildlife crime. And finally, the voice of the local community. As local community representatives, we are very honored and privileged to be amongst you today to share our experiences and to share the lessons that we are learning as we work in the front line. And I have today an opportunity to bring you some eminent community personalities that have worked for many years in this area. And we are going to interrogate this question of engaging local communities in wildlife crime, exactly what it means, lessons and experiences that you are seeing on the ground, and also welcome all of you to be part of this discussion and also taking this beyond this conference into our daily work. I would like to start our session by inviting one of our keynote speakers, our keynote speaker for this session, Ranjit Singh. Welcome.
Thanks, Dixon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rohit. I'm president of Ranger Federation of Asia, and I'm also a proud panda. I've been with WWF for 11 years. I'm going to complete my 11th year next month. We're talking about wildlife crime here. It's the greatest threat wildlife species are facing, the poaching crisis. 20,000 elephants killed every year. Pangolins are struggling. But the key point here is, we all talk about extinction. We have been talking about extinction since morning. I have witnessed it. I started my career in WWF on 1st December 2007, and the last tiger was photographed in that landscape in Cambodia on 15th November 2007. Knowing that species was there 2 weeks back, and now it's not there, the feeling is appalling. But it's not like we are not making progress. We are making progress. We have examples like Nepal, where they have achieved zero poaching. We know that people are more aware of the pangolin crisis. But I feel in all this number of success and crisis, one thing which is missing, or the one key stakeholder that has been completely forgotten, or at least not getting the attention or the recognition they deserve, is the rangers. These are the men and women working on the front line. They are the one responsible for protecting and monitoring and saving the wild areas we all love to see. All of you, many of you actually support rangers. We all have been working on rangers. But what has been missing is the understanding of the working condition of rangers. We can't just do a few trainings and forget about rangers. That's what I decided in WWF 18 months back, that we're going to understand, as a WWF, world's largest conservation organization, we're going to understand the ranger working conditions better. And we delivered the largest ever survey done on rangers. We interviewed 5,000 rangers in 17 countries, 294 sites, protected areas and non-protected areas, just to understand what do they feel, what's their working condition. And the results are astonishing. Let me share some results with you. Rangers work under extremely difficult conditions. 81% of them said that they are doing a dangerous job. 6% of them had malaria in last 12 months, and 1 out of every ranger, 25% of them had malaria in last 12 months, 6% of them had broken bones. And you would be surprised to know, it was very shocking to me, the global average for army is 5%. For rangers is 6%. Still, in spite of all this, half of them don't get insurance. Rangers are not trained. We are dealing with organized crime. We need an organized ranger community. We need more boots. We need better boots, better trained, better equipped, and we need responsible boots on the ground. But 36% rangers were never ever trained on anti-poaching work or on their anti-poaching activities. And refresher training, forget it. 60% of them have never had any refresher trainings. Also, another thing which we should not overlook is the communication support rangers need. Rangers are not able to talk to their own families. During the survey, we encountered one ranger. He said the worst aspect of being a ranger is his son calls him uncle because he visits his family once in 8 months. So rangers are not only physically stressed, but also mentally stressed. They are working in these remote locations with no resources and sometimes with no recognition. 60% of them don't have access to clean drinking water, a basic thing which we all expect. Average ranger salary is $9 a day. So another thing which we found out in our survey is the trust. 70% rangers believe that they need community support. Without community support, they cannot protect the park. And we also strongly believe that it doesn't matter how effective your rangers are. If the people living around the park hate you, you can't protect the park. But we also saw some concern. And that's where the trust deficit is. We need to bring rangers and communities together. Without them working together, it's not going to work. And Nepal is a good example where communities and rangers are working together. At the end, I would like to say one thing. It's great to talk about animal numbers, success, but let's not forget the rangers who are working on the front line. If we really want to stop wildlife crime, if we want to stop the bleeding on the ground, then we have to support rangers. Rangers are the ones who are going to make this for us. It's good, it's very important and good to have intergovernmental declarations, but let's not forget the glue that's holding the on-ground conservation together. That's rangers. If we really want to protect wildlife, we have to make sure that we take the ranger support to a completely different level in fight against wildlife crime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rohit. And I think we now can move into our members who, as Rohit has already described, are members of the Rangers force that are working in our different countries, and also some of our community representatives that have spent most of their life to participate in efforts to end illegal wildlife crime and to bring communities as stewards of wildlife. I think a point that Rohit has really brought out is the importance to prevent loss of wildlife than just focusing on what we do after the animal has already been killed. And the rangers are in the forefront of that, bringing about the security that our wildlife requires. So I would like to bring our panelists, and I will first of all give them each a chance to introduce themselves and where they come from, and tell us a little bit about their role in bringing communities in this effort to end illegal wildlife crime.
Okay. Thank you, Dixon. Good afternoon. My name is Clara Lucia Sierra. I came from Colombia. In my community, crocodile poachers have become protectors. Legal, sustainable wildlife trade give us a reason to conserve. It provides benefits that give people an economic incentive for protection. And that's one of the points that we want to highlight today and send a strong message for the other community.
Thank you, Clara.
My name is Kerimov, and I'm from Tajikistan. Most of you maybe even don't know where is it. It is in Central Asia. I am additionally the chair of Sustainable Use and Livelihoods Specialist Group in Central Asia. I have spent my last 10 years for empowering local communities and convincing you will call them criminals, you will call them poachers, you will call them bad people. So they are right now all my best friends. So I convinced them to change their behavior and be custodians for the wildlife conservation. And I'm sitting today here just because of them, because of their understanding, because of their support, and especially fantastic results in the wildlife conservation. So they're the champions in the wildlife conservation. They convinced me to continue, support them, and empower them. And so should I talk a little bit longer, or we could short?
It's okay.
Yeah, we will continue later. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We can have Martin.
Thank you very much. My name is Martin Awazi. I am from Malawi, working for African Parks in partnership with the Malawi Department of National Parks and Wildlife, stationed at Majete Wildlife Reserve in Malawi. Actually, I'm the head of law enforcement, and I'm privileged to be invited to this conference to share with you a very successful, amazing story, which led to the success or revival of Majete Wildlife Reserve. So I have got 15 years of experience as a ranger, junior ranger, and as the head of law enforcement. Currently working with the African parks, specifically in Majete, as I've said, which is in partnership with Malawi government through Department of National Parks. I've experienced a lot the importance of engaging the communities in managing wildlife. So today, I'll take you through the stories, success stories, amazing, unique stories about Majete, which can be taken as lessons elsewhere. Maybe the last word is that it's not over because there are still more strategies, more ways of reviving national parks and any conservation area which has got nothing. Things can change with community involvement. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon to you all. My name is Champel Hindu. I am a frontline ranger. I work in Royal Manas National Park in Bhutan. And I am a son of former poacher, and my father used to be a poacher, and now my father has turned into a very devoted religion practitioner. And the turning point in my life to become a ranger was one day I and my father were on hunting, and by that time I was 9 years old, and we came across a mother zero with a calf. So I think most of people seems to be not understanding the zero. Let me take it as a deer. Let me say it's a deer. And on sensing our presence, the mother deer ran away when we have killed the calf. And when we pick up the calf and to carry away, when mother deer followed us, without any mercy, we too shot that mother as well. And when approaching near, we saw the blood oozing out of her eyes. Despite of the pain that she was bearing, she looked at the direction of her cub once and called once. And then she became motionless forever. So on that moment, I saw changes on the face of my father. Tears were rolling down from her cheeks. And he told me that we are not harming animals anymore. Animal has a heart. And with that message, he sent me to school with a message to not harming animals. And this is the story how I became a ranger. Thank you very much for listening.
Do you have any applause?
Thank you very much. I think, as you have heard from the introduction, my panelists have nearly 5 decades of experience in working in the front line as community members themselves and actively engaging in this particular important issue. And we bring you the experience from about 3 different continents and 5 different countries. And I hope that we'll be having some good takeaway messages out of this panel. First of all, I would like to ask, as we dig deeper into this question of community engagement in illegal wildlife crime, Clara, in Cambodia, community participation is as important as you have.
Colombia?
In Colombia, you've said that community engagement is really important. So tell us a little bit more about what communities bring on the table and why they're important in this particular journey.
Well, the communities are the one who lives in the ecosystem. The communities are the one who lives with the wildlife. So the communities has the right to participate and to be able to be part of the solution to preserve. We are not going to stop pushing if we don't have the support of the communities. We will not have any success in that. And it has to be highlighted that the way the legal and sustainable wildlife trade give the communities an opportunity or a reason to conserve. That's why.
Thank you very much. Martin, I would like to bring you here and thinking about Majete in Malawi, it's a success story in conservation. Will you share with us some of the changes you've seen as somebody that has been on the ground on a daily basis.
Thank you very much. As I've already said, Majete has got a unique success story. I'll take you back to early 2003. Actually, the history of Majete is really amazing. Before 2003, Majete had literally nothing. And the last elephant was killed in 1990. If you can go on the website, this is published on there. There was no elephant, no any large mammal in Majete up to 2003. Up until the time when the Malawi government invited the African parks to manage Majete Wildlife Reserve through partnership with Malawi Department of National Parks and Wildlife. Majete was revived. Within the 2 to 3 years, 2,500 animal species were reintroduced into Majete. And as I'm talking now, we have got over 12,000 animals. And recently, it was all over the world that we translocated about 150 elephants. So you can imagine, out of nothing, no elephant, but we managed to have about 400 elephants. So there are a lot of animals at the moment. And if we can talk of tourism, now it is doing very well. It is the tourism destination where lots of visitors are coming, and the communities are also doing very well. But the basis of this is involvement of the local communities. Local communities are on our side because they are having benefits. They are seeing benefits of managing wildlife. In those years, the population around the reserve was less than what we have at the moment. Right now, we have got about 140,000 people around the reserve, which is about 700 square kilometers. But I can tell you, poaching is really going down. In those years, the population was low, but there was high poaching. It means the strategies that we are following by involving the communities, emphasizing, saying these resources are for the local communities because they have been with them ever since we were there. And if we are partnering, if we are working together, we can still make a difference. So there's a real big difference at the moment in Majete because it's no longer the way how it used to be before 2003. So at the moment, I can assure you, we have got so many scholarships being offered to students, over 100 students from secondary schools and universities. We have got wildlife enterprise, like beekeeping projects. We have got a community campsite where the money goes directly into the account of the communities for various development activities. So a lot of things have been happening. Population of animals are going up. So it's really working, involving the communities with partnering with the other organizations is really very important. So I can assure you saying that we are still making difference, and this is a right model that is supposed to be emulated elsewhere.
Thank you very much for that illuminating and encouraging story, and how we wish we can see more of these stories coming up again and again. Jamal, I share your story. I grew up in a wildlife area, and I remember a time when I was about 10 years old when law enforcers came into our community, and there were illegal loggers and people who were killing wildlife in our community coming from externally. And there was this exchange, and I remember as a young person watching this unfolding in my land. On one hand, I would like to see more wildlife. On the other hand, I could see the frustration of living with wildlife and the lack of engagement within our community. And that, just like you, was the inspiration that encouraged me to want to participate in wildlife conservation at the community level some 20 years ago. But as a ranger, and as Rohit has already shared, the rangers are the most important people on the real front line. Maybe you can share with us your feelings and what you see on the ground about effectively partnering with local communities, and especially rangers.
Thank you very much for the question. And to answer this question, I would like to address few points here. So first point I would like to address is we need to build a trust between communities and ranger. Most of the time, communities think that rangers are bad people and who are only interested in wildlife and taking the legal action. And on the other hand, rangers think that communities are the bad people who gives information about the wildlife to the poachers. So solution to this problem is that rangers must respond to people's problem and not just for the wildlife. Rangers must get involved in eradicating human-wildlife conflict. I mean preventing human-wildlife conflict. For example, let me take Bhutan. In Bhutan, whenever the wild animal get into the villages, we go to village and help the communities to chase away the wild animals. And if there is damages being caused by wild animals, we assess the damages and we make a point to compensate those damages caused by wildlife. And in turn, what communities do for rangers is that they give the information on the presence of poaching, gapping the intelligence networking gap between rangers and people. This reduces the incidences of illegal activities in the protected areas. And the second point I want to address here is community need to see a park as a source of benefit for them, not as a cost. We need to assure benefit sharing to communities as they coexist with wild animal. And it is essential to benefit communities from parks through ecotourism and employment. And benefit sharing also include support for community events like celebrating wildlife days, celebrating rangers days, celebrating tigers day, celebrating environment day at the village level with communities. This build goodwills within the community. And this is the strategy that we have used, whereby we got more than 20 poachers coming forward with the commitment of not harming any living beings. And third point I would like to address here is communities are part of solutions, our solutions. We need to work with them to benefit from their local knowledges and bridge the intelligence gap. Their communities are our eyes and ears. They know their localities better than us. And their local knowledge must be paid and their local knowledge must be acknowledged. And the fourth thing I would like to address here is acknowledgement of communities of iconic species in creates. And we need to celebrate our success together. It is not only the hard work of rangers, it is not only the hard work of researchers, it is not only the hard work of donors, and it is communities are the integral part of the conservation. And we need to acknowledge them as well for bringing up an increase of the population of the iconic species.
Thank you very much. I think you bring a very important issue, and I think Rohit already explained how sometimes a ranger feels that the community can be antagonistic, the poacher is antagonistic, wildlife are dangerous, and you sort of sit in that middle ground. And I think that's a really important thing that often is not considered when engaging with the rangers is being discussed. And again, for those that have questions, we are engaging you through Glisa if you have any question. And I have one for Clara, and it's really about engaging in international fora like this. And the question is, how can local communities and their representatives better placed to participate in international fora like the IWT we have today?
Okay. When you say
how communities can participate better?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the possibility to the communities to participate in all the issue about stop poaching and illegal wildlife trade. It has to be with the economic incentives that they require to be possible to make their own life. For the possibility for our community to stay in our own land and be legitimized to be there because we know how to use. We can do a sustainable use of our resources. So we have to think about that. We have to think about our economic incentives because otherwise we're not going to stop the poaching. I was really, really happy this morning when I hear the Prince William to say that we should appoint more attention to the economic incentive for the communities. And this is a great point. This is a great thing that we should afford and make all of efforts of governments and community to see if we can do it, because otherwise it's very difficult and it will not possible to stop poaching.
Thank you very much. The issue of incentives and benefits. And again, maybe Khalil, you could also contribute on the issue of incentives that local communities would require in order to participate in this battle, sustainable livelihoods and beyond. What is your experience in Tajikistan?
Let me start with this case study, which is based on a very good experience, and it's very good showcase, I believe, for many parts in the world. So we have in Tajikistan a very interesting, a very beautiful, majestic animal. It's a mountain goat, which calls markhor. You probably, some of them know. And this animal was officially under the national law completely protected because the country wanted to protect this animal. So it was a top-down management. And this animal was even introduced in the red list. So after 40 years of protection, what you will see, there should be everywhere markhor, wild goat in this Tajikistan, and but unfortunately, the animal was almost extinct, even of official, if it's officially protected. So, and then we have started to look very deeply on this issue, and started to communicate with local communities, and we understood that if this will continue in such a way, then the animal will be disappeared in next years. So we changed approach, and we started to create community-based conservancies amongst this range of the wild goat, and empowered the communities to protect this animal with the hope that we can in the future use them through sustainable hunting. And this somehow helped so much. And if you will look on the statistics of how the population dynamics change, we have increase of 600%. And this is not only this mountain goat, but also different goats and sheep in the country, which have incredibly recovered since we introduced this approach. And with this also the population of snow leopard increased in such levels that today, I saw the snow leopard 10 days before I arrived in London. So this is a big success for us to see the snow leopard. We organize a snow leopard tours for the people so can observe. So, and right now answering on your question, incentives. Of course, money, like everywhere, communities must to receive something, like everybody. But additionally to this, is extremely important to communicate the importance of communities, importance of community-based wildlife management, importance of sustainable use through community involvement. And this should be broadly communicated. For example, right now with one camera making a movie, it should be 10 cameras, and everyone should be talking, because communities are key stakeholders in the conservation of wildlife. And making them custodians of wildlife conservation This is extremely important. Everybody wants to feel good. Nobody wants to say, so I'm criminal, I need to be somewhere hidden somewhere. So everybody wants to feel good. And when we will help them to feel this ownership, first ownership, and then feel that they are our heroes and our last hope, then we will do a big efforts in the conservation.
Yeah, thank you. I think you bring a very important issue which is related to the next question that, an actually point that Martin raised that I would like to follow up. Do you think, and this is also a question from that's coming to us, do you think this war can be won without communities?
Definitely no. With the case study that we have in Majeti, as the only reserve which had nothing, as I've already said, without the communities, we cannot win the war of combating illegal wildlife trafficking. In Majeti, the involvement of communities has really been fruitful. I can reassure you that previous 2 years, we have seen the communities handing in pangolins. I know pangolin is one of the animals which is endangered and is on the list, but I can assure you that in Majete, we are able to get these pangolins whenever they get out of the park. This is a big sign that there is a good relationship, and we are working together. They are really supporting us. They are buying in the ideas of conserving Majete because they are seeing the benefit, as I've already said. So definitely without communities, nothing can be done to combat illegal wildlife trafficking.
I think I completely agree with you that local communities make it much easier, much cheaper for us to achieve. The alternative is that we'll have to have a ranger for every single animal in the landscape, and that's not possible, that's not affordable. And so we could bring in these communities to be, to take care of that presence, because they already live amidst the wildlife. They know where the wildlife are, which species are there, where they go every other season, and they are able in their daily interaction in the environment, be able to police in a way and to be sort of law enforcers in their own regions. But we also have the question around, again, the rangers and saying, and the question maybe to Jamel in terms of how can rangers be better supported to be more effective?
Well, ranger can be supported by the communities through giving proper information in the sense sharing the information on wildlife and sharing the information on threat for them and sharing the information on the presence of poacher to the rangers by community. And also it will the main gap between the communities and the ranger I see is sharing the not sharing the intelligence by the communities to ranger. So this can be breached by the points that I have raised in the previous question.
Thank you very much. And I think our organization in Kenya has a network of 3,000 community rangers spread across 160 conservancies. And they generally occur are in dangerous areas, in very remote areas, in many areas where there is not enough network, and amidst elephants, lions, and all the dangerous snakes, and all the other dangerous animals you can think of when you think about Africa. And often, you find that they do not necessarily comprehend the scale of the issues they are dealing with. For a community ranger, having somebody coming in and asking that they want to be supported by a local community member to kill one animal, to take their tusk or the horn or the skin, it's one isolated event that happens once in a while. What often rangers lack is the information that enables them to understand the full scale of illegal wildlife crime and how it is big money, as we had today, and how it affects national economies. and by providing information as we've been told, it's really going to be important. But it's also about making sure that the communities are supporting them, as Ranjit had already mentioned, and it's also about how they are respected, and they, as Khalil had said, are seen as heroes in their own communities, not just by the community, but also by government, but also by other stakeholders that are involved. And the more they feel respected and that their work is important, the more they are likely to be able to continuously engage. But we also have the question of national policies, national laws, a question coming to us from the audience, and any of you feel free to take it, is how enabling are national policies and national laws in supporting community engagement in your country? And anybody can take that one.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Martin?
Yes. A good example from Malawi, we have got a policy which states involvement of the communities in decision making. I think there's a great need for the leaders, government leaders, to develop effective policies which will help establishing a condition on the ground, because the rangers and the communities are the people who are on the first line of defense when it comes to tackling illegal wildlife trade. So involvement of the communities, and if this is reinforced, they are involved in making decisions, they are benefiting. At the end of the day, these people will support conservation of the resources. And this is exactly what is being done in Majete Wildlife Reserve. We have got different structures outside the Majete representing the local communities. We have got what we call community-based organizations. We have got what we call joint liaison committee. And this is the committee which comes in every 3 months, discussing with the park management on the issues of managing the resources and the way forward. If there are issues, we solve them and we move together. And additionally, like in Malawi currently, we thank the government of Malawi for coming up with a very strong act, which is now acting as a deterrent. In this act, there are very strong fines. After the act was developed, what we did in Majete was to go around the park, knowing that communities are our friends, they are not our enemies, we are working together. We did not want to take them by surprise, saying that, no, you have been arrested today, and this is the strong fine that you are going to save, or this is the sentence. But we had to inform them. We had to sensitize them, saying that now killing any wild animal is prohibited and is a case where you deserve a very stiff punishment. And from that point up to date, the rate of poaching, the number of cases, the number of people committing illegal wildlife offenses have gone down, because people are able to know the consequences of being involved in killing or in destroying any wildlife species. So I think, yeah, the government, the leaders have got a big responsibility when it comes to combating illegal wildlife trade, because they are really influential, especially political leaders. If they are on our side as well, I think there will be a very big influence that the communities will also be convinced in supporting the management of wildlife resources in our conservation areas.
Thank you very much. And I think you really bring the point that leaders and the policies in different countries need to be relooked at. And yesterday, during our Community Voices events, we shared experiences around countries that have really made progress in meaningfully engaging local communities and already provide legislative framework for which this can happen. And we were talking, and I was sharing our experience in Kenya, where a new Wildlife Act has been passed that endorses and promotes community-based conservation. a new policy, a new strategy, and our First Lady this morning talked about how in the last 3 years, human-wildlife conflict, but even more importantly, illegal activities, including poaching, has drastically gone down as many more communities begin to adopt conservancies. About 20 years ago, we started about 5 or so experiments, and these were driven by conservation non-governmental organization and the tourism sector that has been a very important stakeholder in this journey. And more, we saw more conservancies being established, and now they cover an area nearly 10%, nearly the size of our national park network. And that's the reason why, as our First Lady reported today, the poaching levels have gone on in this country. And also we saw where policies were being made and on one hand look progressive, but then on the other hand, there are introductions that take away some of the rights and the benefits that come with the original laws, and how community engagement begins to become curtailed, and how people begin to be not necessarily involved, but not participating in ending illegal wildlife crime. And so policy is very important at the national level, but even more important also at the international level, and therefore the importance of this conference. And Clara, do you want to add anything?
Yes, I want to, plus the things that you just highlight, I would like to highlight the sustainable use, like a way to improve in our countries for the participation of the communities. With the sustainable use, we can have economic incentive for protection, and with the sustainable use, we can stop the illegal wildlife trade. Definitely, we need to have a reason to conserve. And if it is clear in the policies, and if it is clear for the legal framework, we can have so many things that we have already learned for the past years, so many already lessons to learn, that we can improve it, innovation, and the way we can stop this the poacher.
Exactly.
And wildlife trade.
Yeah, exactly, the need for more incentives, the need for rights to be vested more on these communities and to be respected. Khalil, I would like also to maybe ask you, what will be your message for a big audience like this that is listening to us today in terms of engaging and partnering with the local communities to address illegal wildlife crime?
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank that we are generally allowed to be here because it's a big honor for us and it's very important. Second, and this is my key message, is I want to be honest with you here because I came from very far away and there is so much work to do, and I don't want to spend the time just for something, for cameras or for... My key point is, like for example, early in the morning until the openings, during the opening session where I was listening a lot, for me and for many other community representatives is a big show which is not really relevant to the topic, We are flying somewhere on the sky, we are not on the ground. This is a big problem. Let's even check what this end wildlife crime. Let's remove the wildlife. Let's say end crime. Do you have any good examples where we were successfully to end the crime? If somebody knows, please tell me that there is some good examples where we can really end something. So we cannot end it, we cannot really stop it. What we can do, we can reduce it. Reduce it in such a way that this is more or less sustainable and the future generation can see the wildlife. So, which is why I want to tell everybody, be pragmatic, be realistic, and local communities This is a part of the ecosystem. This is they're sharing together one ecosystem with those animals, which for us is charismatic and beautiful animals, but for them it's also charismatic and beautiful animals, but it's also something additional. It's sometimes it's problems, sometimes it's difficulties. And we must to come to the one common language with local communities. Like I myself, I born in the capital of the city, and my first interaction with wildlife, it was actually Disneyland. You know, where I was watching beautiful elephants, beautiful lions, and TV, and this was my first experience, and this is how my psychology was developing. But if you look on the children which are growing in the village, they don't see TV, they don't see Disneyland. So they see how their father just today in the morning killed the wolf, or killed the lion, or killed the maybe any antelope for food. So this is their interactions. So they see it completely different. And we don't need to create alternatives for somebody who used to do something thousands of years. Because introduction of alternatives, it makes damaging to the traditional ecological knowledge, damaging to the traditional style of life. This all militarization and all these issues, you know, for example, in the European Union, there is lots of bats, lots of butterflies which are endangered on the small crops. Let's put there lots of soldiers with weapons and say, this is our butterflies, we will come, we will shoot them. Or this is our bats, we will... I mean, in some places it works, in some places it doesn't work, but conservation needs much more than just law enforcement, militarization, and so on. It needs really understanding of local communities on the mountains, in the remote villages, to understand what they need and how we can help them to improve their life, to improve their traditional life, and help them and not criminalize them, because this is what we did last 10 years, and this is the result that we have. So this is my key message.
Would you say that if we take these routes, we can achieve more with less resources?
We will assess a lot, enormous a lot, and we can save a lot of money. And working with local communities, you know, I was so many times disappointed, because this is people sometimes, you will say stupid or uneducated or bad words about them. But sometimes I understand that if we will not invest today in the local communities in Africa, in Asia, in different continents, these communities will grow, these communities will be vulnerable, and this will be huge problems in the next 50, 100 years. So what we need to do right now, invest in the communities, to first of them, to help them to be educated, and second of them, to be strong and not to growing too big. Otherwise, it's a big problem for place. We don't have place in the, you see, it's a problem. So conservation is small and high quality communities. Otherwise, there is no future for wildlife.
And maybe that also brings the question that the audience have also shared around the issue of human-wildlife conflict. Often we focus on illegal wildlife trade, on the species that we know of. Some species are sort of under the radar, and they are disappearing in ways that we may not be recognizing. But also, often we see human-wildlife conflict becoming the next big issue. Where although we are not losing less, we are losing less elephants from poaching, we are losing more elephant through human-wildlife conflict, and the net impact is more or less the same. And would you think from your own perspective, and again, any of you can take this, that it needs a more holistic approach, where we are thinking about IWT as a big issue, but we also don't lose sight of these other important issues that can decimate our wildlife.
Yeah. I mean, this is actually your words, so I don't want to say that it's my words. You said that illegal wildlife trade is actually not a problem, it is a symptom. So I like it very much. This is really a symptom. And if we want, I mean, if we will say there is no illegal wildlife trade, general, if there is no trade, do you think we will save our animals? No, there is other big money interests in the wilderness, and we will not save animals, especially rhinos and tigers. We will say no trade at all. So the key point is here, Dixon. If we want to fight against illegal wildlife trade, we must introduce legal trade. This is the only possibility to eliminate, or not eliminate, let me correct that, reduce the illegal trade.
Yeah, so one of the possibilities, and so we need to think about the whole range of possibilities to tackle this issue. As we come to the close, Martin, I'm coming to you, and as you also make your comments, I also wanted to ask you about the engagement in counter-poaching and assistance that is coming into Malawi that was discussed today, and how you see that fitting into this discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. I think first I want to add what Clara has said on human-wildlife conflict.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to explain and shed more light on that one. Actually, we have got a holistic approach in Majete Wildlife Reserve. The first thing that we did soon after assuming management of Majete Wildlife Reserve by African Parks in partnership with the Malawi government was to set up an electrified fence. And this fence deters or prevents animal from going outside. So in this way, we are trying to fight against human-wildlife conflict, because the animals are no longer going outside. The fence is a reliable one, well electrified. Another point is that we involve the local communities. Local communities, as I've said, they have been with the animals even before we came in to help preserving them. So they have got their own local knowledge. So we share the local knowledge, how to prevent human-wildlife conflict. There are different ways. So we try to trigger, to teach them whatever may have been done elsewhere within Malawi to prevent such a problem. So we are using local knowledge from the communities to prevent human-wildlife conflict. So there are various ways according to the type of animal causing problems to the communities. So involving local communities, involving their ideas on how they have been staying with the animals, I think it's really important. So in these two ways, we are able to fight against human-wildlife conflict. And at the end of the day, we are winning their support.
I think that is a very good contribution, and again points the issue of how community engagement is not a one-off meeting. Sometimes we see that we go to one meeting and we say we have involved the local community, and that the experiences that all the four of you are sharing is that it needs to be something that is continuous, something that is taken more seriously, and something that really has much bigger impact than we have appreciated perhaps in the past. As we come to the close, I would like just to point out some of the key things that came out of this discussion. And for me, I think the effort to tackle illegal wildlife crime really cannot succeed if the local communities are not part of the discussion. And really the question from the audience on how these local communities can be engaged at the country level, but also at the international level, so that mechanisms are put in place. And I hope that could be part of the commitment from this conference, that going forward, there will be more enabling mechanisms that are in place to bring in this voice as we see it, and actually also as they also contribute the knowledge and the expertise that they've had in engaging in this important issue. I think the work of the rangers came out very clearly, that we have rangers in our communities. We heard today from the survey that they, with very little resources, are out there risking our lives for a global, for the global good, and how that needs to be met by a global effort to support the work of the rangers in our various countries. And I think also the issue of that progress is being made. And so although there are challenges in a lot of these areas, we also had some really good examples of when communities are engaged and how it can be quite fruitful. Lastly, I think the point around really focusing on acting to prevent illegal activities before they happen, and not just focusing on law enforcement on one hand. Law enforcement is important, the judiciary is important, the courts, the laws are really important, but it's also equally important to focus on preventing these illegal activities, which often don't happen in the parks. Sometimes we think they happen in the parks. A lot of them, because most parks are not fenced, wildlife are going out, and it is in these places where local communities are paid some little money to be involved. And so by bringing these community members as stewards, we are likely to achieve this goal of ending wildlife crime much earlier and much faster than just focusing on one side. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for my panel.
Thank you.
And for good job.
Dixon.
Again, we have quite a number of us in the audience today, and I encourage you during your break to engage with this team and also the over 30 others that are out there to get more insights and to form partnership that will all contribute to this effort. Thank you very much for coming.
Go.